All right. Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about global interactions. So go ahead and get all your supplies ready. Get ready to start taking some notes. This is Unit 2. Approximately 1450 to 1750. All right, so the first part we're going to do is a little flashback about what was happening before. So just do a little, this can kind of set up our mind for thinking about like CCOT, change and continuity over time, as we reflect at the end of our notes. So again, all of these units are going to cover our major regions. So let's label them. So we have Asia, the Mediterranean, same regions as last time. Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, which is really like West Africa, and the Americas. All right, so these are all the same places. Well, this chapter and this unit actually studies all of these same places again, but it kind of takes a different approach. So there's something kind of important to remember. So before, all of these places were basically agricultural societies. Simple, kind of more farm-based. They were not big empires. Like, even though they were empires, they were not as modern as you see. This new time period is going to kind of get us into this new modern world. But things are going to dramatically change when some opportunities open. So also in the before section, we'll talk about, so this is kind of the location, what it was like in most of these places. Here's the old trade units, or the trade routes. And we did this on our timeline, if you remember. All right, so again, like we kind of think the old way, this is the before. There's really two places, and technically these two places are operating, they're isolated from each other. They're operating independently. So the first one we usually say Eurasia, and then the other one would be the Pacific/Americas. So some things, remember Eurasia. Okay, what would be the trade routes? These would be the three things we noticed also on our timeline. Silk Road, of course. Indian Ocean Basin, I'm going to abbreviate. Indian Ocean Basin is IOB. The Sub-Saharan, which would be like this caravan travel. All right, and in the Americas, the trade was much simpler. It was more local. Within their realm, not in this huge, massive area. It could be from China all the way over to modern Europe. But the one thing in Eurasia that they all did, something that spread along these trade routes that hopefully you're refreshing your memory. So what spread is religion. Ideas, culture, and products. All of these were spreading along these routes. So people were becoming very connected with these things. So if you remember, everybody wants the products in Indian Ocean Basin. But right now, currently, Indian Ocean Basin is being controlled by the Islamic world, and they're starting to charge a lot of money. So Europe, who really wants these products still, are thinking, how can we find our way to get to the Indian Ocean Basin, specifically in India, to get these products, these luxury products? So they decide to start to send explorers. How about we just go straight there ourselves? And they start to find that pattern. So it's always the question, Columbus, why was he sailing? To get to India. That's why he called it the Indies, because he was trying to get to India. But in this journey and their plan, these Europeans' plan to get to India, something new happened, and here's the new part. It's very exciting. A new trade route emerged called the Atlantic. Also, if you remember, called the triangular trade. And then also the Pacific. But most important, you can't forget this one here, Atlantic. So pretty much in sum, so 1,000 to 1,500, there was limited trade. But the big note here, by 1,500 to 1,800, it becomes a huge boom. And the boom is Western Hemisphere is discovered. And what we have now, what we call a global trade. The whole world has opened up. And also on that route, they've also found their way to India. This is quite an exciting time. So because my nice little whiteboard here is running out of space, I'm just going to put in erase. Leave my title. If this is your notes, just keep going. Do not stop. Because what we want to know is that by 1,800, that when that boom hits, who is going to lead us into this next period? It's going to basically put Europe on top, where before Europe was not on top. They were just a like agricultural medieval world. Now they're going to get on top, and they're going to control everything. It's important to remember this because remember, those people who sent off the explorers are basically the ones who are going to take the claim. Also, we have some new processes that started. And the new processes are going to be one, biological exchange. All right, so this is basically a Columbian exchange. Plants, animals, disease, spreading back and forth between Europe and the Americas. Number two, commercial exchange. These are the products. So this could be a good example, might be that triangular trade, how you have manufactured good, weapons going to Africa, then exchange picking up slaves, then exchange going to the Americas, picking up cash crops like sugar, tobacco, rum, taking it back to Europe, and then circling around. The next one would be the fusion of technology and culture. So technology, new types of, like they'll say like the steel came in. You might also talk about guns coming through, culture, religion spreading, like in all of Latin America, the Catholic religion. Christianity is emerging in this region, becoming very dominant. So sometimes on this question, right, the question comes up, who came out on top, right? So in the beginning, each dynasty, each empire, things change. But as time goes on and new things happen, who's going to be coming out at the top at the end of this global interactions? Well, number one, first place, Europe. They're the happiest because they're going to be in control of most of this land. They're the ones who are setting up most of these colonies and colonizing places that had not been taken over before. They're also going to set up major markets and trade in Asia. The next group that might be come out on top next might be Africa. Africa liked the situation. It's like it's happy, but also kind of sad too, because they've got new products. So the climate exchange benefited Africa, helping them bring in more food sources, new products, increasing their lifespan for their people. However, the slave trade, this mass deportation of many of their people to the New World, also kind of a sad one. Number three, Asia and the Middle East, who were once super powerful, dominating trade, dominating all of this land, are now kind of coming out at the bottom because mostly they're going to self-isolate. In their isolation, they're going to be left behind. Everyone had been rapidly advancing at such a fast pace, and because of that isolation, when the Europeans came after that setup for the explorers, they basically came in and took over. The number four saddest people in this storyline would be the Americas. Because mostly it was a total takeover. They lost control of their land. Not only that, they were forced to work, many being killed over, being harsh conditions, being overworked. If that didn't happen, then many of them were killed from disease when the disease came in. So overall, America's definitely ended up with a bad situation here. So this is a little bit of review about global interactions. As you now continue in your study in this review, it's best to study back about those major places: Asia, the Mediterranean, Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, Mexico, and the Americas. Kind of refresh your memory. What happened? What's some key content, key terms that you might be writing about in this time period? All right, thank you for listening. You'll probably remember these from our notes back at the beginning of this section. This was a nice overview. What was the world like when all of this was happening prior to the discovery of the Americas? So this is basically Eurasia, what's going on, and a couple of those key pictures about reminder about what's happening in those places. So go back to your notes, find your copy of this map, and review the information.